And if we're talking about change, one of the reasons the correspondence works, I think, is because of the process that the prisoners go through in this unimaginable situation. I've often wondered what it would be like to be sentenced to death, either guilty or not guilty. And you read accounts from the prisoners of that. And your world comes crashing in. There they are in a 6x9 concrete and steel cage with minimal interaction with other prisoners. Things used to be better, there used to be association, they could play basketball from time to time outside. Now they're in individual cages when they go out, have to invent their own exercise, and if it's raining then that gets cancelled. So they spend nearly the whole time in their own cells, and in some of the more modern prisons, a little wall is built out in between the cells so you can't pass things from one cell to the next or conduct a conversation with any ease. All this to increase the intense isolation of people who probably are the least equipped in society to deal with that situation in the first place, which is why they're there. But then something I think very remarkable happens, not to all prisoners, because some of them end up drugged to the eyeballs just to get through, and others are spaced out watching soaps on television. But for some of them, it is a transformative process. They arrive on death row, as I said, often hooked on drugs or alcohol. They dry out. They then have to face the intense remorse of looking at what they've done. Many of them at that stage learn to read and write properly for the first time in their lives and will get help from other prisoners, insofar as that's possible. And a number of them discover that they're in fact quite smart. And against the odds, they reach deep inside themselves and find, I would like to think, the true human being there, and then can't do anything with it. Because often their family, certainly their friends, often their family will abandon them because the whole experience has been too much for them. They have no real opportunity to talk about it with other prisoners. The chaplains are in a hurry. So they're on their own. And that's where the power of the letter comes in. Because then they can reach out and say, this is the real me. And I think it's easy to be cynical about that and say, well, yes, of course, they would put their best foot forward. But you then get people who've been on death row for years, and the execution date approaches, and they write to their pen friend and say, I would love to have you there at the end for support, but I don't want you to come, because I know what it will do to you. Whereas I think morally they're in a position to claim anything at that point. But they stand back and they think of the other person ahead of themselves. And people like Kate, who've been in families, and my family was the same through Sam Johnson, will tell you of the warmth, and well, you mentioned how it broadened your world to have that correspondence. And it's strange to think of our world being broadened by someone in such a narrow situation, physically, and you would have thought mentally. But people get up to all sorts of things. When I went to see Michael Hendricks, I've seen him now 4 times in Florida, and he's an extremely clever man. And I remember he's very interested in quantum mechanics, and he asked me what I thought about string theory, and I sort of said that I didn't really know very much about it. And he said, you disappoint me, Jan. And I said, Michael, where did you get the information about string theory? And he knew all about it, and superstrings and multiverses and the whole lot. So that broadened me, because I started reading about these things so I could correspond with him properly.